Good.
Great.
Okay. All right. Well, we've got this agenda. Thank you very much, Geraldine, for setting up the agenda. And so we've got, excuse me, we've got our apologies. I'll just say very quickly who they are. Judy Auerbach, Robert Max, Walter Simmons, Jesse Rosenberg, and Eric Johnson. And there's the four of us who are here. And we've had the minutes that Lucienne very kindly provided for us for the last meeting in December, 15th of December 22. And thank you very much, Lucienne, for doing these minutes for today, which is brilliant. And matters arising, I think all I would say as far as that's concerned is that basically there were some changes that could be made, but basically it was the question of spelling people's names correctly, because some of the names are unusual, and so therefore they just need to be corrected. But basically everything else seemed to be absolutely fine. You know, matters of, I mean, these were sort of informal minutes, and they're absolutely fine. And I believe that most of the issues raised in the last meeting do find their way into the agenda for today's meeting. So I don't think, excuse me, I don't think we need to go through the minutes of the last meeting point by point, because they'll come up anyway. So which takes us then to what we need to do is to do, what?
Do you want to go and get some water or something?
I don't know, suddenly maybe it got very
some
dry.
here for you.
Oh, thank you. There we are. Oh, go on, give it to me.
Coffee.
Listen, we're laughing, but one day, maybe in 100 years' time or in 1,000 years' time, we'll be able to do that.
Right.
And we'll wonder how on earth it was possible that people could live without being able to do that.
Right.
So, like with so many things.
And who would have thought we can do what we're doing now?
Precisely.
Exactly.
Precisely. Okay. So I think one of the items of matters arising came up, Geraldine, in your sort of like introductory to the agenda, talking about the name of the society and also the logo. So I think there's been some move back towards the international IEBS instead of just the EBS,
I mean,
for convenience.
Ronnie just sort of suggested, or maybe if you're listed, you should be the Bloch Society. But, you know, where are we listed anyway? And people are referring to us as the international. We've been that since 2008.
Well, and before. I mean, it was International
Bloch
Society. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm suggesting we just stick to that and not bother to change.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So
let's call it the International Ernest Bloch Society, IEBS, henceforth and forevermore. And then what about the logo? There was something to do with the logo.
well,
Okay,
he
so-
actually prepared a logo for IEBS. So we've got one that just says IEBS, International Ernest Bloch Society, and with a name on, and we can perhaps use it.
Yeah, or even like, so I didn't get a chance to look at the minutes that I did. Did you keep the sketch and the writing?
Oh
Okay,
no,
so that's
this
the
is
one I
this
sent
is
you,
all.
but let me see the one let me see it again. Was there the
There's no sketching on here.
okay, so I'm gonna I can send.
See, this is just text. There are no diagrams or pictures or anything.
Because I have one with the picture. Let me just get it.
Oh, okay.
But then I'll try and find what Jamie made before he disappeared off the face of the earth.
Oh. By the way, Malcolm, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about Cleveland and etc. and anything else. But we'll come to it in a second. But you know,
Yes,
please
okay.
do hold it.
No problem.
Thank you.
I think we need a nice bold logo, bold colours, so that
I agree.
people see it.
Well, and I think we should also carry it. Now I've got to figure out where our Zoom meeting is. I minus it down here. Let's see, Zoom. No, I click on this. That, you know, we've got the newsletters going around that are printed on like the yellow thing. Because we need to start combining and having them all the same. Oh, I know what I need to do. Click on this. Yeah, on this. I can't find our Zoom that we're on right now.
Oh.
There should be a little icon at the bottom, which is blue with a little like
Yeah, but when I click on it, nothing happens. Maybe I
maybe minimized it.
It's probably behind what you've got on the screen.
But I lowered everything down. I minused everything down so I could find my. And
what about your listing up at the top, next to the whatever it might be, the apple? Oh, sorry. Okay, good.
What I could only see was like whoever was talking was small, but then there was a little thing I could click on from that. Okay, but let me. Okay, why is this not? Hold on, I got to load paper. That's going to print, but when I see the newsletter and it has the one sketch, which I really hate. I think it's the worst sketch of Ernest Bloch by anybody ever. And then we've got you know, the International Ernest Bloch Society. What we need to do is figure out what we're going to do, and it needs to be on everything. It needs to be on the newsletter. It needs to be on the
absolutely, and also the thing that's on the banner of the website needs to be on the Facebook and on the other thing, and we need to use those colors, and if those are the colors, then we've got to use those colors.
Okay, so this is the one I had done that I sent out. I had Davina remove the pipe. A pipe in his mouth, so he doesn't have a pipe in his mouth. The thing about this one is that it has already this beige color. I mean, she could change the color, whatever we wanted to do. But the fact that we have the newsletters already kind of this yellow color, you could take that and stick it, you know, right in onto that yellow.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and it would work. And then I put international. I could just change that again, and then pick a font that we have, because I don't know if I have the font that your friend did, but if we find something that looks good enough and it jives and we're all like, yeah, that looks good, we can have the name, the website, and then a large IEBS. And that's it. That's all we need. We just have to come up with something that we all like the look of.
Send that to us again, and
okay,
and we'll have a look, and I'll find where he made this thing up, which was just a little rectangle with the wording with no image. And I'm quite happy to remove the offending sketch.
I just never liked it. I don't know. It has nothing to do with that it wasn't my grandmother, because I don't care. There are other things out there that were done by other people that are better.
I love
that one. I don't like.
She was just a lovely woman. I liked her. You know, I knew her.
Was this Milene Cosman who did it?
Yeah, she was a delightful person. And so that's that. Okay, so we've done what we can with logo and thing, and by the next meeting we'll be able to show.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, according to the agenda, the next thing is my sort of introductory remarks. So I'll do that, but I'll do it very quickly. I'll read what I had written as a sort of chairman's message for what is the newsletter that you've just received, but which will be held over until the next newsletter. Okay, so this is just a kind of a slightly modified version of the chairman's message, where I say, dear friends, many of you will be following Google Alerts. This comprehensive internet service has been offering useful information about Bloch performances in various geographical locations, mainly the USA. Since the beginning of January 2023, There have been several concerts that included, for example, Concerto Grosso No. 1, Viola Suite of 1919, Avodat HaKodesh, as well as Shlomo. Furthermore, the 3 nocturnes for piano trio were played in New Zealand. There's been special focus on recent performances of Shlomo by the celebrated young British cellist Sheku Kanemason in the UK and in America. And this is the main topic of the newsletter number 10, which Geraldine has guest edited, because it's very topical, and it's the information is really quite interesting. And in this context, the controversial matter of whether or not it is legitimate to create a reduced instrumental arrangement of Shlomo for cello and chamber orchestra will be mentioned later on. So we can discuss this a little bit more. Even though this work is currently one of Bloch's most popular works, it is not played with perhaps the same frequency as in previous decades. So I was intrigued to discover that it formed the centerpiece of an early evening chamber concert at the Royal College of Music on the 26th of January of this year. 2 Chinese students, Him Chan and Jack Wong, played Bloch's own rarely heard version for cello and piano. Unfortunately, I only heard about this event after it had taken place, but I'm hopeful that it's been recorded. In fact, I have written to the Royal College of Music asking them about this performance, because I don't know of any other occasion when the cello and piano version of Shlomo has ever been played in public, although it may well have been, but it just hasn't come my way. Now to news of other works. The Old Royal Naval College Chapel in Greenwich, London, was the venue for a concert on the 24th of this year entitled Cultural Connections, directed by the internationally acclaimed violist Rivka Godani. Her students at Trinity Laban Conservatoire of Music and Dance performed a program evoking traditional art musics from around the world. One of the works representing Jewish culture was Bloch's Nigun, played by Adrian Morena and Clara Gatti, in their own unique, as far as I know, setting for violin and harp. By the way, Lucienne, I can give you a copy of this, right? I can send you, so you don't have to worry about taking notes if you don't want to. A recent Bloch study group meeting convened by Jesse Rosenberg was devoted to a stimulating discussion of Bloch's only mature violin concerto in 1938, presented by Robert Max, distinguished conductor and cellist, together with brilliant young British violinist Hannah Mizuta Spencer. They will be performing this magnificent work in Muswell Hill in London on the 25th of March, in other words, this coming Saturday. These are just a few of the numerous events that have been and will be scheduled, so demonstrating that abundant energy is being channeled into ever more adventurous projects. So this is really a little bit of a précis of what's been happening mainly over here, but I do know there's been lots happening in America, including, Lucienne, a performance of the Avodat HaKodesh Sacred Service that you yourself have just come back from yesterday. So if you'd like to say a little bit about that, that would be fine.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful hall that they were performing in. The cantor was exceptional. He has an amazing voice. It was his first time singing it, and he was just he connected to it so greatly. Hopes to perform it again over and over if he possibly can. And there was the cantor from, that's not right. She's not the cantor. Was she the cantor? She was a cantor too. Okay, so she was from Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco. She'd been the cantor for 28 years. So she came and she spoke about it, and then she spoke, within the performance, that once the spots that the person speaks, she did that, which was really wonderful.
Where was it?
So it was in Oakland,
Okay.
which is at the Scottish Rites Hall Center, and it was the group of performers were Kantari, I think is their name. I wish I should have my thing in here, but I left it in the car.
It was with was it with organ?
Yeah, why don't you go get that?
Was it with organ rather than an orchestra?
No, it had the entire orchestra.
All right, good, great.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, it was really, it was beautifully done. It really was. We were fortunate to be able to go down. It's about a 3.5-hour drive for us, and it was raining, but we made it down there. I grabbed my mother and my 2 daughters. Oh, you had one upstairs. Yes. So this was the, I know it's backwards for you, sorry.
That's good.
No, it's okay.
But the artistic director, who was the conductor as well, or is that the same thing? If you say artistic director, is that normally the conductor?
No, not necessarily.
I think he was
Can
both.
do.
Not, yeah, not
Yeah,
necessarily, but often.
But the I'll see if I find the name of the singer of the cantor. He was really, my mom was blown away. Because she's heard many.
Mhm.
I've only heard it a few times live. Oh, let's see if I can find it. Oh, Simon Barad. That's a picture from there. His name is Simon Barad. And then here is Rosalind Barak. And she was from the San Francisco.
Who was the conductor?
Pretty sure it was the artistic director.
Yeah, who was that?
Oh, his name, I'm sorry, David Morales. Yeah, this one here just has his name. I think he's here twice.
Okay.
Anyway, they're all lovely, lovely people. Yeah, David Morales. There's a little picture of him.
Mhm.
And is the cantor normally a cantor, or is he just a singer? What does it say?
I know that he sings a lot, so maybe I don't know.
Say in the book?
Yeah. Well, I think he might be a cantor as well, because Roz was talking about, or my mom said, oh, he should go sing that at Temple Emmanuel. And she said, well, we have our own cantor, and he wasn't going to let anybody else come and sing that if they did.
Temple Emmanuel the place that it was written for?
Yeah.
Well, that's why
Yes.
my mom and her were talking, and they were like, let's get this played here again. It's, she couldn't remember the last time. She knows it was played at least once within her 28 years, but I think she said it was only once. And I don't think it's been played since. And I don't know how many years she hasn't been there.
Mm-hmm.
But the Simon is a cantor and a baritone. So he's
What's his name, Simon?
Simon Barad, Barrad. And he really, his voice was just, it wasn't balanced perfectly. He had one rehearsal. So my mom was a little flabbergasted at that, but she knows it happens. But that she had wished he was just a little bit louder. He needed to, and of course, my mom said it in front of, a few other people there. And I said, save that. You don't have to tell them that. You can see, we can talk about that later. You don't have to tell them that right after a performance, but she's a performer. She wants to know, and she wants to be a part of the whole. So, but it was wonderful to bring the girls and my mom and be a part of the event. I'm going to try to look at the Google alerts more often, because I wouldn't have known about this if Mary Fisher, who is the, whatever her title is, the executive director, hadn't contacted us, Ernest Bloch Society. If she hadn't, I might not have known it was happening, and that's too close to not attend.
Oh yeah.
For us, if it's anything within, honestly, if it's anything within 5 hours, we'd go.
With Google Alerts, you don't have to go anywhere. Just go into Google and ask for an alert, and then it'll come directly to you every day. So you just set up your own Google Alert.
Yeah, it's also on the Ernest Bloch, the website. So instead of getting,
I know, but then you've got to go and look. You've got to go and look there. This way, it just comes to you every day on your inbox.
That's true.
So it's better.
Yeah, I just have to be prepared for that many more emails.
It's not that much. One a day.
Oh, isn't that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'll just do that. I'll step that up.
No, I think we can say that it's a pity that it isn't more than one a day, because it means that Bloch isn't being performed very much.
Right.
And let's hope it'll be more than one a day one day.
Yes,
Well, I think
you're
that-
absolutely
that
right.
They
That's the
will
better
collect
attitude.
things. I just don't think they send you more than one a day, but there may be a few things on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's what I meant, really.
Yeah.
Let's hope there'll be more things.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Lucienne, for the update about that.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted I think the next item, number 6 on the agenda, is about the website, and perhaps we could take in website plus photography.
Sure.
Would you like to discuss those?
Yeah, so I traded Davina an hour of website work. I helped her with her taxes, so she returned by getting the last newsletters on there and replacing the one newsletter that you had asked to have replaced, Geraldine, and a few other things. We got a link to Sheku's performance in Boston because that one was recorded and on their website, so that's on the website now. I will say that I got the most current, they sent me notification. It's about $170 a year to have the website. And I don't mind paying it right now, but at some point it'd be nice to figure out if there's a way to do anything that somehow the society pays for the website. And it's hard to pin down Frank, because the reason why we went the route we went originally was because he was supposed to have this free website forever, for as long as he was alive, and then some. It was supposed to go beyond his lifetime. And I know that when Aaron created it, he did that in mind with Frank so that it wouldn't have to be paid. But then I can't get from Aaron or Frank or the gal that Frank used the reason why we're paying for a website now. So it's not that much, $170 a year. I did work with Misty, who is Frank's original gal. And we talked about, the most recent one was the lady who was looking for that information on the website. She says it was there before and it's not there now. And I'm like, we still have these broken links because specifically when she transferred it over to the .org, things got tweaked. So I sat there with her for about a half an hour and figured out what was happening. We think we fixed as many broken links as we could find. You can say something, Malcolm?
No, I'm just, I keep dropping in and out. So Alex and I are just emailing each other about it. So I'm getting most of what you're saying, but I don't know why I'm dropping out. That's fine.
But so I think we fixed all the broken links. I think, and then she gave me guidance to how to fix, if I came across another broken link, how I could have somebody who knows more about computers help me fix that. So Davina could sit down with me if we came across another broken link, but I think we fixed that. I think the website is now, and Davina can get in there and actually do work when she has time. She's in the finals of her classes that she's taking right now, so she really doesn't have extra time now. But things could build up and I could sit her down for an hour and do some work at some point and in exchange for me helping her with something. My mother just at the door. She can come and say hi.
Let her come and say hello to us.
Yeah.
Mom, come and say hi. Come say hi.
Who am I saying hi to?
You're saying hi to Geraldine and Malcolm and Alex.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Evening, Alex.
Lovely to see you.
He's feeling good.
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah, he got over. He's doing right. Okay, you've got the card. Okay.
What do I call him?
Sal. Sorry, little business on the side. I said, don't worry, I'm just taking notes. Didn't know I was right in the middle of talking. Okay, so Davina, will you help Baba? Mom, just bring me that manila envelope right there on the table. I'm just gonna do something really quick. But I think the website's good. Photography, so with Malcolm, Eric and I are gonna try to work on the San Francisco thing, but let's talk about the photography with the San Francisco thing when you talk about that one specifically, Malcolm. And I'm gonna take a break for like a minute and I'll be right back.
Sure.
I don't know why my internet seems unstable because it's only ever on this call where I seem drop out. And I work on Zoom, an enormous amount of time. And it's always fine, but it's always on this call that I tend to clip out and then come back in.
Is it because of my Zoom room? Maybe.
I don't want to blame your Zoom rooms because I don't know enough about it. So maybe, I don't know.
Maybe my internet is not strong enough for you. Anyway, we can see, we can
I'm
see
here
and
for
hear
most of it.
you, okay?
Yeah.
And if,
yeah.
As I say, from my point of view, if we could discuss the San Francisco stuff,
Yeah.
and and I've got to go about in 20 minutes or so, but that's fine, I should imagine.
Okay, we'll just wait for Lucienne to come back. The funny thing is, Malcolm, that when Alex went to Croydon to hear the Sheku reduced version,
yeah,
LMP have labeled their program building blocks.
Oh, right.
But
Sorry about that.
Okay, good.
I'm back.
Good.
So Malcolm.
Mom, just take this. Take this, Mom. And then just bring it back.
Whose is this?
It's ours.
Oh. I'll give it to Dave then when I come home.
Bring it back here.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
My life.
So, should we just talk for a moment about San Francisco?
Yes.
I mean, nothing's happened, and I was hoping to do something last week when then I was laid low. Eric wrote to me just before he had his operation saying, how should we move forward with San Francisco? And I haven't done anything with them for some time. I think it's now time to write to them. The guy I've been in charge with, I think, is the Dean of Studies or something, but Eric seemed to think, Lucienne, that you had connection with the president or
My
chairman.
mom knows him. Yeah.
So I wonder whether we should send a joint letter to both parties.
Yes. And whoever, she might even have another
I'm afraid you're all
somebody.
frozen again. Can you hear me? I don't know.
We can hear you, but we can't see you move.
Hello, are you back with me? Did you get all that? So
Yes.
whether if in the next week I draft a letter with a kind of proposal, which is only coming out of my head really, but I would have thought a chamber music festival alongside a photographic festival. So Alex, do you know exactly when he started? I mean, would we want to do it in the autumn of 25?
Well, I can check that. I'm not sure the exact month, but I can check. It was 1925, but
Yeah,
I'll let you know.
Is it the beginning of the academic year might be a good...
It may well be, yeah.
But
So.
if I will write a brief proposal if, Lucienne, you're happy, and send it to you, and perhaps then we can do it so that it goes to both parties and then maybe begin to move the whole thing along.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, well, I will do that when I get a moment. I've got a lot of catching up to do this week, next week from what I missed last week. But I will make sure that's on my list. And it's really probably. I mean, I've sent together some rough ideas before, and I'm hoping that if it gets the green light, there's a man called Dmitry Murat, who's head of chamber music there, who used to be my pupil. Both at the Menuhin School and at Guildhall. So someone I was very close to a long time ago now, because he's now this very important figure there. I'm hoping he might kind of take it over as his baby and kind of sort it out.
And will you copy the letter to him?
Play some of the pieces himself. He's a wonderful viola player.
And will you copy the letter to him?
Yes, I think, yes.
Copy the letter to him.
Yeah. The guy I was I think Hans Munk or Mook, who's the person who'd last dealt with me, and David Conti, who is head of composition, I know very well, and Dmitry Murat, who's originally from Belgium, but has been at San Francisco for a long time now, and studied in the UK. These are, we've got some good connections there. I also, last week, a lady called Carla Rodriguez, who's the viola player in the Opera House Orchestra, the principal viola there, she was here in London for a concert that I was involved in. I had a chat with her about it, and she got very excited about it as well. So we've got lots of San Francisco connections. It seems we ought to be able to make something work, but I would have thought autumn 25 is what we should be aiming for.
Yeah.
How does that sound to you, Alex?
Very good.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
The
Great.
only thing I would say is, if you're going to go for the first term of a new year, it might be quite difficult to organize something because they need their students to be more into it. So I'm thinking you
Yes.
need to be in the March, the spring term is when you need to be looking at this thing.
Well, that's up to them. There are many ways of doing it.
Yeah.
You can prepare it the summer before. I mean, they break up very early in America. They break up in May. Their summer begins ridiculous time, and they begin in mid-August. So their academic year doesn't quite align with our academic year. But I'll try and push that along in the next week or two. But I'll send it to you, and then I think we should send them together so that it's one effort to the various people.
100%. Yeah.
And what
You've
about,
frozen again.
what about
Anyway,
Cleveland?
those are my thoughts.
What about Cleveland?
Okay, back to you, Alex.
Back to me. No, Geraldine was asking about Cleveland.
I've got nothing in Cleveland. I'm going to be in Dayton, Ohio at some point in that year, because I'm writing a new piece for Dayton, and they may be interested in doing something. I've already spoken to the conductor, but that's not a good connection with. That's not somewhere where Bloch was.
But that's fine. I mean, if that's a connection, let's go for that connection, and especially if you're going to be there.
Yeah, I will. Well, I'll speak to the conductor. The concert I'm involved with is a
Ohio
London. Yeah. But anyway, in fact, just today I've been redrafting my contract for my project there, which is all going ahead very smoothly, touch wood. But I don't know, again, I don't know the dates yet exactly for when we're going to do that.
And are you happy as part of your project there to have some Bloch input?
It won't be in that particular concert because it's a London concert, London music, Vaughan Williams London Symphony and Haydn London Symphony. But the conductor is very interested in doing something in his season. And as we know, the problem with the violin concerto, which I would love them to do, is it's expensive to put on. But I'll certainly talk to the conductor.
One of the things I think we should do is we should have a special meeting about the violin concerto.
Sorry, this is very unstable.
You can't hear what I'm saying. Maybe.
No, I can't hear. Say, I can hear you now. Try again.
Okay, I'm saying we should have a special dedicated team looking at promotion of the violin concerto. So, you and Robert Max and Miriam Kramer and David, Jack Liebeck, and, anybody we can think of who's got some clout, Rob Cowan, who's written a very nice thing about it. Let's just get together on Zoom and have a brainstorm about how we can set up a campaign to make the violin concerto. And if it means raising money to help support people use the music, then that's got to be part of our campaign. We've got to do it.
Yeah.
So would you be part of that team?
I won't be much use to you, but I think Robert Max, who's just done it, will know all the pitfalls. I think Robert's the person to start with.
Well, I think we need everybody. We need the person with contacts and the person who knows violinists and who knows conductors.
Yeah.
Now that's what we need. And
I certainly know violinists.
Doing it next year, He said, he announced
Yes.
last time, in Oxford, he's going to do it with Hannah next year. In
Yeah,
their
no, that's
program in
great.
Oxford.
Yeah, I know it's expensive. This is a problem. It's a very big orchestra, and that's always going to be a problem. Bloch's orchestral works are usually for big orchestra, not all of them, but most of them. So anyway,
Alex even uttered the words, should we ask George to do a reduction for the violin concerto?
oh, imagine, how could Alex have said such a thing? I mean, where's it? What planet is he living on?
Well, I think it's a jolly good idea.
Well, I know, I think so too. Well, at least a good idea to consider. I'm not sure it's necessarily a good idea to do it, but I think we should investigate it.
I mean, the second movement is sublime, and with a smaller orchestra, that second movement would still be fine. Yeah, the outer movements are slightly different, but
then if you think of the big climaxes in Shlomo, how on earth can you possibly reduce those? And yet, at the Fairfield Halls, I was impressed. They managed it somehow, London Mozart players. I don't know how they did it. It was some kind of magic, really, because, I mean, George Morton really did a good, in my opinion, look, I mean, the people will differ on this, but in my opinion, it felt, it really worked. And I didn't expect that.
Well, no, I was confident it would be all right. I mean, I think Raphael Balfish was the most skeptical. So, but
yeah. Well,
anyway,
I mean, should we sort of just tentatively say to the London Mozart players, how would you feel about tackling the violin concerto if it was arranged for your forces? You know, that's one of the things.
Who was conducting it?
Oh, was it like Jonathan Bloch or something like that?
Jonathan Bloch, yes, he's a pupil of mine. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Well,
yeah, he was a cellist. He was a cellist at the Menuhin School.
Very good.
Small world.
In fact, I brought him there. He's from Newcastle. I think our first pupil from Newcastle. But he doesn't play the cello anymore now. He's just conducting, and he's doing very well as a conductor.
Right.
So, do you have a contact?
He'd be up for it, certainly.
Do you have a contact for him, an email address that you could give me, or you could?
Yeah, you've all frozen again, I'm afraid.
Can you hear us though?
Yeah, I know you've just come back. You keep coming in and out. You've just come back.
Okay. So, would you be able to write that note to him and say how would he feel about it? And
well, I don't. Was he not just a guest conductor? He's not their regular conductor.
Don't know. I can't remember now.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because if he conducts other orchestras, that's fine as well.
He's not someone yet who has that clout. He gets engaged. He doesn't have that clout. I think you need to go to whoever the chief executive or the artistic director
but we'll
of an organization.
We can do that as well. We can do that. You know, let's not leave any stone unturned here. You know, we have to have a broad campaign.
But I think you should write to the orchestrator and see if he's interested.
Oh, look, he's interested. He'll do whatever he's paid to do.
Right.
You can be sure of that. If he can do Shlomo, he can do the violin concerto.
I think so, yeah. He would be able to. Yeah.
What was his total fee? Do you remember?
I think it was something like £3,000.
Right.
It's not bad for doing that whole thing.
Mind you, I have to say the violin concerto is a lot longer than Shlomo. I mean, it's about twice the length. So we must be honest that, you know, that is a factor in the expense.
Well, I can certainly write.
There's a lot of notes.
There's no difficulty in writing to George. I've got his address and I'm in touch with him. That's good. So he wrote a very nice little thing in the newsletter. I'm actually extending the newsletter now to add what they wrote in the program for Boston and also to the pictures, if that's okay, Lucienne, to publish them in the newsletter. Yeah. So this newsletter number 10 is not ready to go on the website.
Okay. Sorry, Malcolm, what did you want to say?
Maybe we should run it by more committee members before we make too many decisions. And
yeah, I think that's right. No, we may have to go through this whole.
We need anybody's permission to try and promote the violin concerto, do we?
No, but I think we need to hear what people. Yeah, I think not to get permission exactly, but I think people need to be informed about what's going on.
Yeah, but they can be informed and they can also contribute. You know, we need their input as well. But we don't need to say we're not going to do this because they haven't been at the meeting.
Anyway, I think the first person to begin with is Robert after next week.
Exactly. I won't do anything until after next week. You know, Robert is exactly a key person for this.
Of course.
So no, we're not going to do anything before next week.
So I think maybe we should move on because otherwise we'll get a little bit late. I think the next item, are there any other performances that anybody wants to talk about? Because I don't know of any other performances that have taken place that apart from the ones that we've all mentioned so far. And I'd like to go to the Bloch study group. Right, so we have here the Bloch study group, which Jesse has been organizing, and he's had some very, very nice presentations, the latest one being Robert with the violinist, Hannah, who will be playing next on Saturday. And then the most recent one was Josh Hirschberg, and I still feel a little bit upset about having missed it because of being incompetent when it comes to time differences. But at any rate, I hope I'll be able to see it when it becomes available, you know, on the internet. But apparently it was very interesting, got quite controversial, lots to do with Israel. And I think there was some rather personal statements were made during the course of that, which obviously added to the spice. At any rate, I think that for future Zooms, I think Jesse has in mind contacting David Kushner. And I really hope David Kushner will give a talk, because David Kushner is the present-day scholar who has written the most and published the most about Ernest Bloch. And I really feel that he should be represented in this. And I think it's only because we got the email address wrong that he hasn't been hearing about what's going on and therefore hasn't been participating. I don't think that he is without interest, although he writes about lots of other kinds of music as well. But I think a talk from him would be really valuable to have in our series. I think also there was some talk of having a presentation by Frank Geltner about the situation in Oregon, notably in Newport and Agate itself, just to hear what the latest is with regard to performances, concerts, sort of like museums and galleries and the house itself, to see what possibilities there are in the coming years and particularly for 2030. And then there is the question of Howard Pollock, who might also be able to give a presentation, which leads me to the next point, the agenda number, which is to do with publications. But before I come to that, is there anybody who wants to say anything about the Bloch study group?
I would just say that Howard wouldn't be ready to do anything for this Bloch study group and for any time soon. He would want to feel like he was into the book and knowledgeable before he talked about what he was doing. It wouldn't make sense for him to talk for an hour about what he's planning on doing without knowing more. So I don't think he's a viable anytime soon.
And I also think we need to bear in mind that Jesse has said that he can't go on doing it. So,
of course, yes, so we understand. Yeah, that's true.
We don't know at what stage he's going to switch off because
right. He did say if it was like much less frequently, he probably could continue if it was like really infrequent.
Yeah. And I think we should leave Howard Pollock to digest what he's doing and come up with a book. I don't think we should ask him to do a presentation on the study.
No, okay, fair enough. But let me just, because I've had some correspondence with Howard. I should say that Howard is a very prolific author. He writes very fast, it seems, and he writes really big books. So he's written books on American Jewish composers such as Mark Blitzstein. I've noted some of them down here. Walter Piston, John Alden Carpenter, Aaron Copland, George Gershwin, and he's gung-ho about Bloch. He seems, by the way, to have immersed himself in the Levinsky-Dijon volumes. And the last time he wrote was about a month ago, and he said that he's already well into the second volume of Levinsky-Dijon, second out of 4, and he's really going through it with a plan to have a biography of Bloch. And I have a feeling he'll be doing it quite soon, because he's somebody who doesn't mess about. He really goes for it, and he has huge energy. I admire him for that, because I wish I had that level of energy. Any rate, so I think that we can probably look forward to Howard not only having a book to present, but also wanting to do a presentation. So I don't think it's a question of us inviting him to do one. I think he will offer one. But that is for the future. I'm just saying that it's definitely on the cards. This is not some kind of, nebulous sort of ideal of any kind. This, I think, could happen, and it could happen, I think, quite soon. In addition, there's the other publication that has come my way, and that is the one, this one, which I think you know. This is Frank and I have been, over the years, editing this booklet, which was written originally by Nancy Steinberg, but needed to be corrected and updated in many different editions. The latest one, which I have here, was 2018, and Frank wants to do a new one for now. And I think there'll be all sorts of extra things to be added in, including, for example, the 3 songs, Lucienne, that I mentioned earlier on when we were speaking, that were part of the series of Historiettes au Crépuscule, which Bloch published in 1903, but he only published 4 of the songs. The other 3 songs, although they were probably ready for publication, were not included, and we don't know why. So therefore, there's a bit of mystery about that. But I think that they will have to be included in this booklet, because this booklet is supposed to include a complete list of all of Bloch's music, including the unpublished, and indeed in some cases the unfinished works as well. So that's another thing that is actually in the pipeline, and I'm really intending to help Frank with this as much as possible. I know that Lucienne, you have actually looked through it and given your own comments and observations and corrections, and many thanks for that.
Yeah, I talked to my mom specifically about the things that she was mentioned in.
Right.
She corrected some things, and then the other things, there were little things, but they were, Can
I ask about that? Why is that particular format being chosen? Because I find it extremely difficult to read. It's very cramped, and the writing is very close together. And I'm wondering whether you can't just make it a normal format rather than that little sliver of a booklet.
Yeah, I didn't have anything to do with it as far as that goes. I don't know, but I could talk to Frank about it.
I think so. I think, fair comment, of course. I had nothing to do with the format either, or the design, or anything, or the fact that this is this color. I have no idea why any of those things. It may be because they can be stacked more easily in whatever kind of stacking situation there is, but I don't think that's a particularly strong argument. I think that there are ways of, I don't know, maybe somebody felt that this was a nice design, but I had nothing to do with it, so I don't know. Frank is the person to ask. Frank actually did work on it, presumably with Nancy Steinberg in the very early days before I became involved in it, and so therefore they may have had a reason. It may have been something practical.
What was the purpose of it when they wrote it? Was it to put in a museum for people to pick up, or what is the purpose of this?
It's the Ernest Bloch Legacy Project, Economic Development Alliance of Lincoln County. And I think the first one was about 15 years ago. So I don't actually know. I don't know what the purpose was. I think it was to advertise Bloch as being somebody who had lived and worked in Agate Beach in Newport. So this was intended originally as a local document.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Okay. I would just suggest that perhaps one could open up the purpose of this document again and see whether it has more ramifications, whether this is a definitive document about Bloch's published works. And I think as that, we need to look at, other ways of distributing it and having it able to be distributed. But certainly if it's better able to be read, it will be better.
Yeah, sure. And I understand what you're saying. I think that this is, on the one hand, parochial, and on the other hand, universal. So therefore, it's a little bit of a conflict between what is its purpose and whom is it directed towards. This is not absolutely clear because there's a lot about Bloch biography in here and about the family background and going all the way back, which has nothing to do with Agate Beach. This Agate Beach was only the last 20 years or just under 20 years of Bloch's life. So I think the focus needs to be examined again. And I think the only aspect of it that I can see at the moment that is to do with Bloch's works as a whole are the lists in the inside, front and back pages, which actually include everything that Bloch composed. But apart from that, it's not really about a complete survey of Bloch's music.
Well, could I say something that can we have that material when you've corrected it about Bloch's works and publish them on the website, not so that you have to read it in this format from this book, so that you can just download it and read it properly from the website?
I haven't checked, but I was under the impression that that information was available independently on the website, but maybe it isn't. So I think
Talking about the list of music that he's done. Which part are you? Yeah, that's definitely on the website. Yeah, you can go to the website and see.
But is it this list? Because there's so many lists of Bloch's music around.
I don't know.
And some of them are full, and some of them are not full, and some of them are right, and some of them are wrong, and some of them are this, and some of them are that. So we need something standard.
Do you have that, Alex? Do you have a correct full list?
Well, this is as full and correct as it can be, minus. Minus. No, I haven't got this on my computer. I must have it somewhere actually, but it's minus the 3 extra songs.
Okay.
So in other words, Frank, I think we did have some correspondence about this, and I told him about the 3 extra songs and I gave him the details. So I think he's put them in somewhere, but I don't know where.
Right. So the next one would have them, and that in your mind would be the most complete and accurate listing. Okay.
I believe so, yes.
I need to make sure that that's what is on the website. That's what I can do.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that to have this list, complete list of, is this chronologically, Alex?
Yeah.
Okay, so this chronological list, if it's only there within this booklet where you've got to look for the front cover and the back cover, it's not as useful as it could be if this says chronological list of Bloch's works, boom, and you can find them all on the website without having to look into this book.
Yeah, right. No, I understand that.
Purpose is that it is there. There is a chronological list without connection to this book on the website.
Right.
I just don't know which list it is, because I know Aaron had the old International Ernest Bloch Society. He had Frank's, and he put the two together. So if there was a different list on each of those websites, I don't know which one he used.
Okay, I need to check on the music that's listed on the website.
I'm going to look today to see if it matches the booklet, because if that's the most correct list, then I can make sure, and I can, Davina's done with her finals at the end of April, month or so. I can make sure that when she's done, I'll pin her down and have her, if there's anything correct, and make sure that we do on the website. But there is, you can go to the website and go look for his music chronologically. At least that's what I'm pretty sure.
But you see, what I understand from my memory of the website, you can look up his works by instrument. And if you click that, you get Wikipedia.
Yeah, but I think that's a different.
If you click chronologically, you get this booklet. Do you see what I
Okay,
mean?
I'll double
So
check
I
it.
think we
I'll
need
double
to
check it.
think about how we're presenting his
For sure.
music on the website.
Okay.
Guys, I'm going to have to love you and leave you, I'm afraid, but it's been really interesting. I've got to go off and do something else now. But Lucienne, I will be in touch with a draft letter and we'll take it
Sounds
from
good.
there.
Sounds good.
And Geraldine and Alex, hopefully I'll see you in the flesh soon.
Are you
Yeah,
going to the concert are you going to the concert on Saturday?
No, I can't go on Saturday. I've got another commitment, I'm afraid,
Okay, yeah.
which
Well,
I've had for ages. But
Alex-
you've all frozen again, I'm afraid. So I better leave you. Anyway,
Okay.
good luck.
Anyway, get well. Get well.
Thank you.
Alex and I will be at Robert's concert
Oh yeah,
on Saturday, and so will Judy.
and maybe some other people who
And
knows.
Malcolm Miller says he's got a ticket. So
Oh, did he say that he would review it?
he just said he had a ticket. I asked him if he would review it, and
Oh.
he said, at least in the first instance, we know he's going to be there. So the first step to reviewing it is being there.
Okay, well, look, shall we, do you want to carry on or shall we just leave the rest of it until we have our proper next meeting?
Let's look and see what we may want. What is left?
Okay, well, let's go on then.
Let's just do.
So there's the 150th anniversary, that's item number 10, building blocks. We've spoken about Cleveland. Not Cleveland, but we've spoken about San Francisco, right? Then there's a newsletter. Do you want to speak about the newsletter number 10, which is the one that you have guest edited?
I've compiled that, and I'm now going to add the stuff from the program notes from Boston, because I think they're quite useful. And he's also quoting program notes that David Ollins wrote for the original performance.
Oh,
And there's a little picture of the original brochure for the Boston Symphony to perform this. So, why not? This is about Shlomo. Let's make it about Shlomo. So I felt that there was enough material of interest, enough voices showing, and Walter kindly said I could guest edit it because I've been in touch with all these people. And the most amazing thing was finding that in 2009, this little 10-year-old boy called Sheku Kanamason had come and applied for the Ernest Bloch competition, and that he was so good that they gave him a special prize. They just felt that he put so much feeling into it. So I just wondered whether we in fact have spurred him on to his interest in Bloch, or where it came from in the first place. And my other wonder is, just between us, that, where does his Sephardi background, maybe through his mother who comes from Antigua or somewhere in the Caribbean, whether there are some Sephardi Jewish roots, that this is just, there's no evidence for this whatsoever, except his soul.
but let's not forget, that soul is not restricted to ethnicity. And I think, people of all different kind of outward appearances can have a lot in common, which is nothing to do with how they've been brought up, or the language they speak, or the religion they follow. No. This is something that goes a lot deeper. So it doesn't surprise me at all that just like there are English people who can excel in Japanese music and are accepted as grandmasters by Japanese of Japanese music, even though they were brought up in, I don't know, Bedford or Scunthorpe or some other small town in England. So there are people who can really express Jewish feeling, even if their background is very different from what is stereotypically Jewish. So, and I noticed this. I mean, I know this has got nothing to do with it, but I do remember I played Bloch and I played some Jewish cantorial music and folk music in Beijing in 1993, which is the first time I went there to lecture. And I mentioned this story several times because it's important. I played them some of this music and they'd never heard it before because they were all Chinese. And they said, this music is so emotional, it comes straight from the heart. That's what they said, having complete ignorance, ostensibly, of the music that I was playing them. So why would they say it comes straight from the heart if it meant nothing to them? And so therefore, why should we assume that you can only respond to the music that you've been brought up with? I really feel completely unimpressed and not in agreement with people who say, well, only Jewish people really understand Jewish music, or whatever what we call Jewish music. Anyway, my sermon is now over. So I know that Walter is very interested to get lists of neglected works, so as to, in a sense, set up a kind of priority list of works that really we should be trying to push forward, in order that those works should be heard alongside the half dozen or dozen works that we're always hearing that Bloch is being performed and being represented, I should say, by these sort of half dozen or dozen works, when in fact they're altogether 70 works or so.
So how is Walter and how are you helping to take that forward?
Well, he and I have made lists, and I've shown him my list, and he has mentioned his, and we noticed that about half of each list is exactly the same. In other words, we came to the same conclusions quite independently. But I think he's waiting to hear from a few more people. Maybe he will, in the next newsletter that he edits, he may very well actually ask again for people to supply him with works that they think should be particularly revived because they are particularly neglected. He mentioned one in particular that I can think of now, which was the Evocations of 1937, an orchestral work, which is not a big piece. It's about 20 minutes long, 3 movements, and it's all influenced by Chinese or East Asian idioms. And I've written a paper about that and some of the other Chinese works of Ernest Bloch and discussed those Chinese works with Chinese music scholars and performers, both in Beijing and also in London. And they have said that Bloch really captured the essence and the spirit of, you know, whether it be Chinese opera or whether it be Chinese folk traditions of the north and south of the country. But he really got into it without necessarily quoting direct folk songs or motifs from the opera itself or operatic motifs. So he said that Bloch had really done his homework, and that when he went to Chinatown in New York and when he went to Chinatown in San Francisco, he really absorbed the idiom very, very substantially. And Evocations is one work that this is brought out in. And quite apart from the fact that it's interesting, it's also a wonderful piece of music. So I think he and I agree that that is, for example, one neglected work of Bloch's that should be revived. And I think there are plenty of others, and so does he. And we wait to hear from other, not necessarily scholars, but other, people who are interested in making contribution to that subject.
Can I ask a question that might be stupid, but I don't know.
Mhm.
When you say Chinese, would that include other Asian music as well? Because
Yeah.
I know that like in 1934 in particular, my grandmother wrote in her diary, that she had come across a Javanese record and she bought it for her father because whenever the kids were about, if they found a record of something that was unusual, they would buy it for their father because he was always wanting to play music that he'd not heard, or that, so, going to these, Chinatown as well, but he had an extensive record collection of, all sorts of different music that he would, play and glean from or learn from, and I'm just
Yes,
wondering, so
of course.
Okay, good.
No, I was just going to, a total agreement. In fact, he did have a huge record collection of 78s, of course, at the time.
Right.
These, Bloch actually was one of the earliest ethnomusicologists, because he made a study of these things. Not only did he actually collect them because he liked listening to them, which of course is a terrifically legitimate reason for buying a record anyway, but he also studied them and he learnt about these different kind of musical idioms from all over the world, not only from the East, but also from different parts of the West and Africa and all over. But he was very interested in Southeast Asia as well. And certainly the Viola Suite of 1919, which was the first major step away from the Jewish cycle, he wrote of that very interesting letter where he said that the Viola Suite was, somehow a kind of evocation of the wonderful sounds of Borneo and Java and Sumatra and all these countries that he had visited. He had never, or what did he say? He had never visited except through his imagination. And this was as a result, by the way, of the influence of Robert Godet, who was the person who was writing this very anti-Semitic book, Translation. But nevertheless, introduced Bloch to all this music that Robert Godet knew very well because he had studied it.
Interesting.
And he'd heard it. And I think he may have even traveled far and wide. So we have a very interesting situation here where Bloch is really interested in a huge amount of different things.
Well, I think that we've got a newsletter in the making of Bloch and the East, Bloch and the Far East, which could have all kinds of articles by people from China, by you, by your lectures, by your, all the things that you're saying. There could be a newsletter devoted to it.
Well, I have actually written a paper on this subject because I read it at a conference, but this was actually not in a Jewish music conference or a Bloch conference. It was in a Chinese music conference, and it was in the UK somewhere. I can't remember exactly where it was, or it may have been in Holland because this was the foundation place of this particular organization. At any rate. And I wrote this paper, but I've never published it anywhere. And I would like to publish it because I think it's an interesting, different slant on Bloch. Because I don't think anybody has actually systematically written about Bloch's, shall we say, Eastern or East Asian influences.
Well, this is why I'm thinking we could make a point of bringing that out, not just hidden somewhere, but have a special publication, whether it's a newsletter or whether it's a series of monograms, Bloch and the Native Americans, Bloch and China, and publish something like that, which wouldn't be difficult because we've got a lot of the basic material.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, something to be thought about.
How long is this thing? It's probably too long for a newsletter.
I can't remember how many words there are. I would think probably 6,000 or 7,000 words, something like that. A standard paper for a conference.
How many pages of A4?
I don't know.
Okay,
maybe
doesn't matter.
12.
So can I
something.
suggest that we consider publishing monographs on different aspects of Bloch's work?
Yeah, why not? Sure.
I think it's a lovely idea.
Okay, starting.
All right. Okay, starting with China. Okay. All right.
We won't, let us just think for a minute, what is the newsletter? Because maybe the newsletter isn't this kind of thing that is maybe what I've written about Shlomo should go in a different category to a newsletter. It should be monographs.
I think this is all good. I think a newsletter is bringing news, whether it's old or new, or it's a place where somebody can go and read about. I don't think we need to micromanage it. I think filling in,
I think actually that if I remember rightly, the Bloch Society Bulletin changed its character when David Sills took on the editorship. And he took on the editorship, sadly he's died now, so I gather, but he took on the editorship, I think it was probably in the late 1970s, 1980s, something like that. And at that point, the whole character of the publication became more scholarly. And in other words, he included articles of real research, I mean, deep research, and wasn't afraid to put them in a bulletin rather than in some kind of academic journal. Whereas before that, the Ernest Bloch Society Bulletin was much more like a family news sheet. And it had its value, but it was very much lighter. And it was much more to do with people communicating with each other about, shall we say, family matters, performances, recordings, people meeting each other, all that sort of thing. Whereas then with David Sills, it became really quite intensely academic and very useful source of information, which people have consulted and used, for their own subsequent research.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking we need two separate things. Walter does a newsletter and he likes to potpourri. He lists what comes on the Google Drive, or he thinks about some record. You know what I mean? It's a potpourri of current stuff about Bloch, which I think has a great place. And
well, of course, it's very important.
But I think that we could at the same time consider a more bulletin-like thing, which I would call perhaps monographs rather, or, another title, perhaps not, or they could be called bulletins, which are different to newsletters.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, the title we could find, but I think the actual intention would need to be established in advance. And one could be, as you say, more as it was in the early days of the Bloch Society Bulletin or newsletter. I can't remember what it was called, actually. I think it was Bulletin. And that was when Suzanne and Lucienne, and I'm talking about your grandmother, were editing it.
Yeah.
And it was very valuable from the point of view of seeing, how the family interacted and, people who wanted to look at, life with the Blochs or something to do with, the inter-family currents and discussions and atmospheres and everything like that. It's very valuable, very interesting to do that. But it wasn't strictly academic to do with the music or, philosophical issues exactly. It was a lighter kind of approach. So I think there's room for both. There's room for both.
Yeah, I think we should perhaps discuss it with Walter
and
define what the purpose and what the kind of coverage of each one should be. And I'm willing to compile a monograph on a subject rather than, and Walter do the newsletter, which is a more topical thing to do.
Okay, well, we can discuss that. That sounds good.
Okay.
I think it's a nice and interesting development, actually, because I mean we haven't talked about that before. Yeah. Okay. Well, I do want to get through a little bit more quickly now because there isn't a great deal left to discuss because Mark Kligman is not here to discuss conferences or the film or the recording or the podcast and all the Milken type things that were discussed at previous meetings. So we'll have to leave that to when Mark does join. And then broadcasts, well, let's hope that over the next coming years, there will be broadcasts as well of Bloch's music. Maybe they have been, but I've missed them because I haven't been following that very carefully, but I have been following concerts more. Recordings are happening all the time. Claude Torres knows all about he's very good about keeping us informed about what's happening, not only in the English-speaking world, but in the German and the French and the Italian and all the other speaking worlds that do show some interest in Bloch, fortunately. We need Frank to come and talk to us about a stamp, because I think there's been some discussion as to what to propose for the Bloch stamp for 2030 in America. We don't have any representatives from Israel, Switzerland, China, or Japan. But I think as far as China and Japan is concerned, it wouldn't be fair to expect them to stay up till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know whether we can rearrange our meetings so that we could perhaps make a meeting once in a while that they could attend, because the time scale would be fair. But it would then mean, Lucienne, that it wouldn't be very convenient for the West Coast of America, which would be very sad.
Once in a while, I can handle that. you know, we did something, especially if they had something that they wanted to share in particular, I would
Right.
set an alarm and, you know, wake up at 2 a.m. or whatever for a
Well,
meeting.
yeah,
Might
it's
look
uncomfortable, but it does show the global nature of the organization. So, which is nice, but it's also difficult practically.
Mhm.
So, but we'll have to talk about that. We'll maybe we should talk about that when there are more people here who have views about it. And then any other business? I've just got two things. Somebody mentioned, I think Geraldine, you mentioned a long time ago, but I think other people have mentioned about a Bloch Day every year, an Ernest Bloch Day. And I just wonder whether you want to say anything more about that.
Well, this was something Miriam Kramer mentioned, you know, to have you know, I mean, I think it's a great idea, but it just needs a little bit of administration, you know. It needs to be set up by certain things. It needs to be launched. It needs to have a, you know, so yes, fine. But who?
Who's going to do it? Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. But I think it's good to keep it on the agenda. I think it's a good thing. The other things that we discussed with Miriam were to present to music colleges a folder of Bloch's works that the society put together and gave them, so that it's there with a little introduction to who Bloch is and why they should play Bloch, and some basic works for different instruments, and actually give it as a gift to music colleges and make the arrangements with whatever publishers are needed to do that, or that the colleges can then download it. We don't have to physically print it and post it. We just give them a code and they get it, you know. So that's another thing that needs somebody to work on, but is imminently doable and valuable.
Yeah, sounds good. Now, perhaps we can bring that up again. Well, we'll bring it up again at the next meeting for sure. I think that, yeah, I feel an Ernest Bloch Day would actually, and also the package for all the various colleges around the country. And we're talking about the UK at the moment, but of course in America it would also be very nice. And I think in America people would be perhaps more familiar with Bloch than they are here, generally speaking, in terms of the conservatoires. I think.
And the other thing we thought of doing was to do an Introducing Ernest Bloch Day, where you gave a talk to start off with to say who he was. We have various musicians playing some of his works, and then we have a workshop in the afternoon, and it's all recorded and it's put on the website, and people can then refer to it. And
yeah, sounds nice. Yeah.
But maybe we should put on the agenda for the next meeting activities to make Bloch better known. Underneath the 150th anniversary, a brainstorming of activities that to lead up to 2030.
Yeah, sounds fine.
And what we were doing, we were having meetings individually, Judy and I think you also, Alex, with Natalie Klein and with Raphael Wolfish and with Miriam Kramer, and these people who are already interested in Bloch, and to get their ideas of what they would like to see and also what they'd like to help with.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Now, I think that's basically it. But the date of next meeting, Geraldine and I, we were thinking about a particular date, but we didn't know that there would be a maximum of 4 people at this meeting. So I have a feeling that there ought to be another meeting fairly soon to try and attract more people in, because it's a little disheartening to feel that there are only 4 people who can find the time to talk as a committee about, you know, something that should really generate a lot of momentum and a lot of energy. And it's great that we had 4. I mean, I'm really grateful that everybody came who did. But I'm also sorry that the remaining, I don't know, 12, for whatever reason, didn't come. And so I think, actually, I don't know how many it is. I've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I mean, 21, including the people from abroad. Well, 4 out of 21 is definitely not okay.
Well, and also, why didn't more people say, hey, I can't make it? And if we do get enough people that are our core that say they can't make it, we can communicate with each other and say, let's change the date so that we can make sure that more people make it. Okay, well, we're going to change the date because we've had 5, these, I don't know, was it 7 people that said they couldn't make it?
Well, all of them couldn't make it for different reasons. But I think that those many people are too many on a committee. We should not have a committee of so many people. I think we should have a core committee of 6 or 8 people that get on with stuff, because you can't drag a group of certainly unenthusiastic people around with you and make them the committee, So I think that we should consider, to be honest, that the committee is, where was that? Yeah, that the committee is the 4 of us plus the people who've apologized. Basically, Robert, Judy, Eric, Jesse, and Walter, and that's enough of a committee. They've all got a portfolio. They're all doing something. And I think that we should consider that the core committee. And I would even write to them and say, look, we consider this as the core committee and we hope that they'll commit to this. And the other people, we're very grateful for their interest and we'll consider them on a consultation basis rather than as committee members.
Yeah.
Well, I sort of agree, but not entirely, because there are some other people who neither showed up nor apologized, but who I feel would still have a part to play in this. And I'm looking at the names of Frank and Malcolm Miller. Yeah, actually, I think probably
okay,
those
I'm happy
2.
to include Frank and Malcolm Miller on the core committee.
Yeah.
And what is the situation with Suzanne? I mean, what do you have any contact with her?
I mean, I communicate via social media. Every now and then I'll send her a message, but my opinion is that she really doesn't have that much of an interest, that she felt like she should because it was her dad's, dream.
Right.
And personally, between the 3 of us, I believe that she felt threatened.
Hang on, I'm going to switch off.
Oh, thank you. I forgot.